My name is Insane Raven. I am back with another episode of IR Reviews, and this time I'm coming back for YouTube Red. Didn't mean to do this review, just kind of found it, watched all of it in a day, and was like, yeah, guess I can review this now. And it came out, and the last episode came out 5 days ago, so I'm doing alright. Alright, so let's talk about youth and consequences. Akana's youth and consequences. If I fucked up your name, I'm sorry. Don't hate me. I don't want the hate mail. If you're new, I have an accent. Things get fucked up. Moving on. Okay, so this isn't the first, and nor will it be the last YouTube Red original series that takes place in a high school. I'm not even sure if it's the second. Could be way past that as well. I don't know. I stopped keeping track, if I'm honest. But, well, for some, was a comedy and had very much this almost Saved by the Bell, a sexual Saved by the Bell kind of like feel. Youth and Consequences has almost a Skins feel. Not over dramatic, but to the point where what is happening is relevant and it's going to be a roller coaster. The meat of the show is figuring out who the fuck Akana's character actually is. With so much of her character being almost up in the air for a large part of the show, you'll see the things that she does that are genuinely really great and really amazing things for someone to do. To go out of their way using her popularity and her intelligence. But then you also see her do some terrible fucking things that make you kind of remember, oh, right, this character's a bitch. I shouldn't forget that. Ever. So with that being the dynamic, a lot of the show is spent kind of trying to figure out how, not only how Fara, Anna's character, how Fara kind of results, but also why things are happening to her, why she kind of has this outlook, where she's going with this outlook, and what ultimately her end goals are. Fara is the popular girl at her high school, and she's kind of the Mean Girls-esque conniving bitch with it. But then she also does these things that are genuinely nice, and we get to see because, well, first off, we don't exist in her world, and we're not trying to fuck up her story. Whereas everyone else is kind of either an ally or a rival. And one of the things we do see, one of her biggest attributes and one of her greatest strengths throughout the entire first season is that she's there for who she's there for, and that's one of her biggest themes and attributes throughout the entire show, and something that she harps on herself quite often, saying how she's not, if you're in her way, you're a problem, but she will fight for her people. Her people are who she's there for. And then even then, she goes out of her way to kind of save face for people who she feels need to kind of cover it, which is odd. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the entire show kind of kicks off with the apparent suicide of a school counselor on campus. This gets everything going right around the time of the student body elections. So now what happens with this office apparently now becomes a key factor in the student body election, which is weird because I'm pretty sure schools, no matter how dope they are, allow you to just renovate rooms out of dead people. It's weird. And one of the things that you kind of see throughout these beginning episodes, because the first episode is a two-parter, so it's really 2 episodes, which make up the first chunk of the show. I'm confusing this. Is kind of dictated by how the fallout of this suicide, what kind of goes into everything, and the scandals that this now brings up. There is a news blog type thing on on campus, which is called the Crotch, which is the Central Roach, or whatever they actually say pronounce the school name. How to feed. Basically, it's yak on steroids and personalized. And it's been a tradition that every year the Crotch, literally the name of the thing, is chosen by the last year's Crotch and kept anonymous by all means. Which gives a lot of characters a lot of the secrecy and add a lot more depth to the show. If it wasn't for, oh yeah, things are happening in plain sight, you just can't see them type thing. Which is nice. I'll be honest. That is a nice little thing to have going for you. So as the scandals start to rev up, as the show continues, you start to see more and more of Fara's character. Fara does have 3 main friends. There's Jane with a Y, plain Jane with no Y, and Hurley, whose name is actually Sarah, but her full name is Sarah Hurley. And because it's Sarah Hurley and Fara doesn't like the whole Sarah Fara thing, she had everyone in school to call her by Hurley. So you know the type of person we're dealing with. A lot of the, which is fine, but then there are certain issues that come into play, which come in halfway through the show, halfway through the season. So I'm not gonna spoil how it ends, the story arc, but I am going to talk about it. So be aware. I slight risk for spoilers, but I'm going to save the all-out spoilers for later, if that makes sense. Because one of the issues that kind of comes in with the show that I do feel needs to be talked about, at the very least. And that is the treatment of a character called Trip. Trip is one of the jocks in one of the, I think it's football? I'm not sure, I don't remember. But it's one of the various varsity teams. So he's an athlete, he's hot shit at the school, as it were. And he starts going into the girls' locker room and professes that he is gender fluid, which is, a thing. It actually is a thing, and I'm just being a dick about it for the purpose of how it's used in the show. And it does come across as this whole, oh, look how woke we are that we were able to include this in our show. And it even gets commented on in show of, don't you feel that this is, by going on this attack, don't you feel like it's a bit of an overstep by you, by all the trials and tribulations that the LGBTQ plus, if you want to add 20 other things to it, just again coming off as a dick, it's fine. How their struggle actually is. If you are just faking, that's kind of fucked up. And then we see something that kind of goes against Fara's character, at least what we've seen at this point. Now, Fara is a manipulative, powerful character on the campus, and she does have a lot of things going on in her private life and her home life that kind of drives her and keeps her showing. And we do see a lot of the reasons why she is the way she is. And then we get to this gender fluid story arc, which first off gets made fun of, the whole issue, as a part of the tabloid crotch type thing. But then again, it's the crotch, so what were you really expecting? I think if we're all honest, we can be upfront about that. But then it goes into this place of Fara all of a sudden, even after saying she's not the biggest fan of Trip, coming out and wholly defending him. despite everything, and going so far as to kill a story, because she does fancy herself a journalist, killing a story that she was very interested in and went on this giant stakeout to kind of go through in order to save Trip, to help Trip save face, which seems to me like such a overcorrection by the team. It seems like they were like, oh, okay, so we want to do this LGBTQ story arc. How do we do it and still come out looking good? And it kind of feels very, oh, well, we need this character to do this in this moment, so this is what we're going to get this character to do, rather than something that makes sense for the character, for Fara, which I might get. I do want to hear your opinions on that, and I do want to hear how you felt that came through and how everything kind of worked out in the end on you guys. But that's just personally how it comes off. It comes off as, oh, we want to talk about this subject, but we can't have our main character be the villain for this, when she is fully well and capable of being the villain everywhere else. It just seems out of place. It just seems like it doesn't really belong in this story, but rather it was on the cutting floor from a different story, if that makes sense. It just seems like a very jarring character change. All in all, I really do enjoy this. I really did enjoy this YouTube Red series, and I enjoyed everything that it comes out, and I'm excited for a season 2. I'm excited for the idea of a season 2, which I will be talking about in the spoiler portion. So if you haven't seen all 8 episodes of Youth and Consequences, I do suggest you bail now, because I want to talk about all the other things. This is going to be my chance to talk about all the things. So, if you guys haven't seen it, please bow out if you don't want spoilers. If you do want spoilers, welcome to spoiler time. Welcome to spoiler town. Population. That was a fucked up way to say population. Okay. Let's talk about it. So, one of the things that has carried over from the student body president position is a character called Grace Ho. Grace Ho is a nobody. And you might be thinking, hey, you said that this was in the first couple episodes. Why is this being brought up now in the spoiler portion? And here's why. She ends up being this massive bitch who becomes ultimately Pharaoh's rival in a I'm hijacking your life type of way that it's very reminiscent of a bunch of other teen dramas. But it becomes this thing of like, oh, I now have to contend against this monster I've created. In this bid to get power, I've created this monster, and now I have to figure out how to beat this. And watching Grace's whole progression is very interesting, because you do get to see how she starts out as a very petite girl. She's very antisocial, not in the way of like, oh, I don't do people, but just not being very comfortable around people and being a very, I'm here, this is where I am, and I'm not going to go out and do other things. I'm happy being here type of character, which is great, watching her character progression. But her progression definitely becomes part of the problem, essentially. And that's most of what I'm excited for, is watching her and Fara collide in season 2. Because in this season, she was very much treated as, you're a problem I'm going to have to deal with, but you're not my biggest problem right now. So because of that, there's some give and take. So, back onto the other things. Back onto actual storylines. Back with Trip. Trip does end up being gender fluid, and he ends up being a drag queen. Which, again, I love that they took this risk, but how Fara reacts is so unlike her character and unlike what we've seen of her character up to this point. It's jarring. But pictures of him in drag do leak out, And it kind of sends everyone into the spiral of, oh, and at this point the Crotch has been hacked, which I don't want to reveal who the Crotch is, even though this is the spoiler territory and it's not a big deal. But I do think that there's something kind of charming about it. I do think that there is something that's like, oh, I like this about it all, which I do want to kind of keep intact. So the Crotch gets hijacked, and Fara, at this point, everyone knows who the Crotch. At this point, everyone who's integral to our story knows who the Crotch is and knows what's kind of going on. And Fara is now kind of sent in this warehouse of, I need to fix this, and I'm the only one that can fix it, so I gotta work on it. And she ends up claiming responsibility for everything that the Crotch has done, which is not true. She ends up falling on her sword, and she ends up being the victim. She ends up throwing herself onto her blade, and it's something that you really do see that Fara is a good person. She's malicious, she's manipulative, and she wants what she wants, but at the end of the day, she is a good person. And you could you could say that that's why she goes on the saving quest for Trip, but even then, it doesn't feel right. Her throwing herself on the sword for the Crotch and claiming responsibility as a Crotch seems much more like a move out of desperation versus a move of selflessness. It's like, this is the last card I get to play type thing. And at the end of the season, you see that she lost all of her power and prestige at the school. You see that she now has to deal with the fact that she still has all of the school year ahead of her, because all of the season ends by homecoming. So, which is a very high school drama thing to do, but she's lost all of her power. She's still in senior year. She has all this time now, and all of her friends have kind of one by one said, I'm done with you. I'm done dealing with you. I'm ostracizing myself off from this. And it definitely becomes a contention of, well, what do we do? Where do you go from here? And you see old enemies become allies, old allies become enemies, and it greatly becomes a thing of, Fara is the hero in the end. She is the one who saved everyone. She's the one that ultimately we should be singing praises about. But, we're not at the end. The school body isn't. The school body has turned against her. Miss Popular Queen now has no one to go to. And it's something that is kind of is 100% foreshadowed in earlier episodes, where she's like, you have to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help, but you have to ask for it. You have to let people in. And through all the flashbacks we get within the series, you see why she doesn't trust anyone, and we see why she's in this dark place, essentially, and all these other things that have happened. And it sets up a possible season 2. Not a possible, but a very plausible season 2. Well, I'm excited to see where season 2 goes. I want to see this rivalry. I want to see this rise from the ashes type thing. The one thing I will be curious about is what would be the next deadline. Like, what would be the next thing? It's like, oh, well, season 1 was up till homecoming. So what would season 2 be up to? And what would season 3 and 4 be up to? Because this is also a show that I don't think can sustain itself for very long. I think once, because the Crotch is destroyed by the end of the season, so there's no longer the Crotch, which was a big factor in the season. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the school runs post-Crotch, which is just ridiculous saying. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how everything kind of works out in the end, and I'm curious to see how it all goes. But I am excited for season 2. I am excited to see a rise from the Ash's type of storyline. And I think out of all the YouTube Red series, I didn't hate this one. This one wasn't dumb. It wasn't Night of the Living Dead. It wasn't, fucking... What was that one show? I have to look it up. But there was this one show that I tried watching. I'm like, okay, the last episode just went out. I can do a recording on this, and it'll be good. It'll be a good kind of place to start picking up. Oh, We Are Savvy, which probably because it was a family type show, and I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever watched. This is what people think when they think of YouTube, and this is why I hate this type thing. But it was something I really enjoyed, and it was something that, it hits on all the notes I wanted it to, this show, and I want to see where this goes. And just listening to Fara monologue in the opening and closing of each episode was interesting. It was like, oh, this is almost very I don't know what it would be like. I don't know what show it would be like, but it's something that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the opening monologues, and I can't think of a show right now that did opening and closing monologues well, because I'm like, I don't fucking know. But so thank you guys for watching. If you guys watched all of Youth and Consequences, what did you think? There are characters I just didn't talk about. There are things like I didn't talk about Hook much. I didn't talk about Crowley much. I think that's his name. I don't really know how to say his name. And there were a couple characters I just didn't really talk about, mainly because they're all important, but they're not the main focus of the show. And even if you didn't watch it and you're still somehow here for this part, I do want to be like, hey, there are still things that I didn't talk about. I didn't spoil, so you can talk about it. I just wanted to talk about the main thing that wasn't like too distracting. Because that's the one thing the show really has going for, is that it all flows really well. Kind of like works together in sync. There's not anything that's jarring. But yeah, now I'm rambling. So thanks for watching. If you saw Youth and Consequences, let me know what you thought of it in the comment section down below. If you want a season 2 or think that season 2 is coming, let me know what you think it's gonna do or what ideas you would want to see in a season 2. And thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.